Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. If you're one of those people tuning in for Matt Tissier will be here around about 7 o'clock to talk about the crazy goings on in the last week or so, in which the Chelsea and the Manchester United manager have both been fired from their jobs. And of course, he'll be here to talk through a unique situation as a former professional footballer. And most people would call him the god as well, as an exceptional footballer, on the madness that is going on in the Premier League. Most people think this is just a geopolitical show, but news is news. And very simply, that is newsworthy. We will also have Tony Gosling sometime this week to come on and talk about the Venezuela situation and everything that is happening there. On Thursday morning, we will have Jamie Ike coming to give his view on everything that's going on. So that will be there for your subscribers' breakfast on Thursday morning. And at some stage next week, we will be talking to somebody who is going to be looking to get the Democratic ticket to become the new governor of California and challenge Gavin Newsom. He has agreed to come on the show and answer all and any questions. So we will look forward to having him as well. So that's what's coming up in the near future. But for the time being, let's get into what has been going on all around the world. Now, everybody would expect us, and quite rightly so, to start with everything that has gone on with, of course, shall we say, Maduro and the ongoing situation that is happening in Venezuela. And there are lots of rumblings and lots of people now talking about all sorts of things. So it is only true and right that we start with that as a massive geopolitical, shall we say, soiree into what is going on. Now, China have released a statement about this. China are very unhappy. Of course, China had a lot of egg on their face when they saw what had gone on, and they weren't very happy. Let's have a little listen to what they had to say.
China has made its position clear regarding the United States' forcible control of Venezuelan President Maduro and his wife. China expresses grave concern over the U.S. authorities' forcible control of President Maduro and his wife and their subsequent transfer out of the country. The actions by the U.S. constitute a clear violation of international law and the basic norms of international relations, contravening the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter. China calls upon the United States to ensure the personal safety of President Maduro and his wife, to release them immediately, to cease subverting the Venezuelan government, and to resolve the issue through dialogue and negotiation. Cooperation between China and Venezuela is collaboration between sovereign states. It is protected by international law and the respective national legislation of both countries. Regardless of political developments in Venezuela, China's commitment to deepening practical cooperation across various fields remains unchanged, and China's legitimate interests in Venezuela shall be safeguarded in accordance with the law.
That is China's position there, and they're very unhappy about that. There's not going to be a lot they can do about that militarily. And of course, we'll be asking all sorts of questions. Can they do anything about it legally? Not really, because the ICJ are turning around and saying, and everybody else is, shall we say, on tenterhooks. But here's where we have a problem. Let's have a listen to Marco Rubio talking about what's going to happen if the UN are involved.
No, you're wrong in your question. Number one, Venezuela is a major source, and the reason why is the following. And I've seen a lot of this reporting, and it's fake reporting, and I'll tell you why. It says that somehow Venezuela is not involved in the drug trade because the UN says they're not involved in the drug. I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they're talking about. Maduro is indicted by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York. That means the Southern District of New York presented the evidence to a grand jury, and a grand jury indicted him. And then a superseding indictment came out that was unsealed about a year and a half ago that specifically detailed Maduro's actions. So number one, let there be no doubt, Nicolas Maduro is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and he's a fugitive of American justice.
Now they're absolutely desperate to push that. Nice to see you with your skull cap on there, dear old Marco. Now, very, very simply, of course, Maduro is very much desperate to push this. Rubio is very much desperate to push this because there is starting to be an enormous amount of pushback on the fact that, of course, Maduro is not, of course, anything to do with it. Not anything to do with drug trafficking, and people saying that Maduro appeared in court today, and he has been arraigned for March the 15th, I believe it is, but certainly in the middle of March, they have literally made for the court date. So to give you a quick update there, the middle of March is when he is going to be put forward as a sacrificial lamb. That gives them plenty of time to get all their stories straight and everything else. Louis Bastos.
Good morning, good evening. What the hell has his wife got to do with it?
I would turn around and say exactly the same thing there. That's a very, very good point. And when you see the picture that is coming out today, now, as they were being transported to the courtroom by helicopter, Associated Press and everybody else decided they wanted to take pictures of these people in handcuffs. Now, if you think Maduro is a crook, absolutely fine. There's Maduro's wife. And of course, this picture is now doing the rounds because everybody is looking at this picture and go, there is an unbelievably frightened woman, literally cable tied. Is this really necessary to be doing this and parading them around like this? It does seem to me quite incredible. There was a couple of people with their hand up there. Eric Jones had his hand up first, I think, and then Lee Williams, and then Louis Bastos. Eric Jones.
My opinion, it's a very slippery slope when the end justifies the means when it comes to law. When you start saying the rule of law, well, we can excuse that because he's a bad guy. Well, let's just stop, excuse me, but let's just stop Putin from going in and snatching Keir Starmer and saying, look, MI6 was behind this bullshit. We can prove it. And we're trying him right now.
Yeah. And of course, this picture doesn't help, Eric. I mean, the picture is literally being flashed around the world. And rather than having the impact that it's supposed to have, everybody is saying is, look at that poor, frightened old woman. And that is, I mean, you can't, if you look at that picture there, you'll get the Trump supporters or people who are very pro-Trump going, oh, you know, they've got him and everything else. Everybody else that isn't rabidly pro-Trump is looking at that picture and going, what's going on here? Look at that poor frightened old woman. And of course, that is a picture that's now being flashed around the world. So I think you're probably right in the fact that what we're seeing here, of course, Trump now has to come up with these charges. Now, the problem that we have with this is, can the rest of the world now turn around and go, well, we can arrest anyone, say that they're doing this, and then turn around and say, okay, we'll do something else with them. Louis Bastos will be in a second. Lee Williams, then Louis Bastos. Lee.
A quick one. Has he got his own lawyers representing him? And why would he still be in prison for something that he didn't commit?
Sorry, I missed that. You'll have to speak up.
Sorry, I said one, has he got his own lawyers representing him? That's one. And secondly, would it be a case that he's actually not guilty, and it's going to be a form or a time that he's going to be in prison or withheld?
Yeah. I mean, you're right on that case. You know, the
Well,
solicitors.
it's military law.
Sorry, Alexander.
When they say well, at the moment, it's all under military law.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna work out the way we would think it in Civvy Street.
No.
This is a massive military operation that's been running for what, nearly 8 years now.
Yeah, but the trouble that they have with this, Alexander, is they now, because they're saying it's a criminal matter and are arresting him for criminal reasons, then they have to have the criminal law that is available in America available to them. That's where where it falls down. When it stops being a military operation and it starts being criminal charges, if it's criminal charges, it's no longer a military matter. That's the crossover.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see where we go from there. I think we've got a couple of people who've got their hands up as well. Sean Murphy.
Well, on the face of it, Warren, it appears that it can't be a military operation because they were arrested by the DEA. And in fact, the guys, the arrestees in that picture, the arresters in that picture were actually wearing flashes that said DEA. So
Yeah.
it must be a civil case. So he must be liable. They can't put it in front of a military tribunal when he wasn't arrested by the military. He was arrested by the DEA, who went in with the military by the look of it.
Yeah, exactly that. And what we've got here is a major problem because the legal ramifications of this are all over the show. And of course, we'll get deeper into that. Louis Bastos.
The issue here is simple. They will plant evidence that doesn't exist against Maduro, and that's it. These guys are all the same, DEA, CIA, they're all the same, FBI. They will plant evidence like they do to normal people in the street, dumping a bit of marijuana or cocaine in the car and say, oh, look what I found. It's going to be, this guy is cooked unless the world sorts it out, because this is what America does. America does this all the time.
Yeah, and it's going to be, shall we say, something that is not going to go away. You're absolutely right. And of course, there are many, many legal ramifications here because, of course, they use the military to go in and capture them. And of course, they can. There are certain things they can do under the law that, of course, will upset everybody left, right, and centre. How can I put this? In a poll recently in America, just in the last 24 hours, when they turned around and said, was Trump right to grab hold of Maduro and spirit him out of the country, 57% of the people in America are against this. That's a huge number. I mean, you'd really want, even when there was weapons of mass destruction, there was only about 10% of the people going, hang on a minute, are we sure? Most of America was, yeah, come on, let's do this. Nillis and then Louis Bastos again. Nillis.
Yeah, well, America's just steaming. Louis is right. America's just steamrolling its way through the justice system again. It's a bit ironic that Maduro's got the same lawyers as Julian Assange had, and his case was totally illegal as well. And
it was.
Even the CIA had planned to assassinate him when he was in the Ecuadorian embassy.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there's an old saying, Nillis, isn't there? You don't go to a tailor you don't go to a tailor when the State Department can fit you up.
Yeah, and as somebody else pointed out, I think it was during Obama's time, they did exactly the same to President Aristide of Haiti. They kidnapped him, and he was spirited away. I can't remember what happened to him. He was the actual priest who was the president of Haiti, and went up against the Clintons, who sort of run that country and have charge of all its gold, because it's a large producer of gold, Haiti, although people don't realize it. And he was spirited away, never to be a president again. So it's not a unknown thing.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, Lindsey Graham, to my Chinese friends, in case you were planning a follow-up meeting, this was a couple of days ago. But people like Lindsey Graham coming out and shouting from the rooftops like this is, how can I put this? It's not doing the cause any good. The general consensus, now it's not my consensus, I'm just reporting, but the general consensus is that America is an absolute runaway train at the moment, and they're just going to be doing whatever they like. And of course, many people are pointing out how terrible it is. And pictures like this do not help. They really do not. When you look at what they are, when you look at Maduro's wife there, it is quite staggering. The people have gone from being on the fence to, oh my God, look at this old woman. Nillis.
Yeah, you're quite right. But as we were saying, they've been doing it for years. The only difference is that they would keep it more under wraps. Trump's going out there with a big press conference.
Yes.
I remember, one of Colonel McGregor's comments on it was, I would have never told them how I did the operation. Yeah, that's stupid of Trump to be boasting about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be absolutely honest here. The fact that it's one of the close security detail that bubbled Maduro up to the Americans is beyond any question whatsoever, or beyond any doubt at all. There's no question that he's in a circle. And of course, the vice president was in on this. Lee Williams.
I was going to say, in most people's majority, would they see that, like, not the American people, but I'm talking the actual corporation of America and all of them, are they actually guilty of what they're doing? Why would they take him to New York to see a sentence when it should have been done in his actual country? Why
Well,
have they stolen him?
They forever do this, because if they're on American soil, they can form the narrative by which this goes round. If they'd have tried to do that in Venezuela, it would have collapsed already by now, one suspects. Now, do pay attention to this. Very, very important that you do. Donald Trump threatens Venezuela's new leader with a fate worse than Maduro. The president told The Atlantic, bear that in mind, that Delcy Rodriguez needs to comply with US wishes or else. Nillis.
Yeah, I was remembering they did the same thing with Andy, didn't they? But they actually shot him in his bedroom. So yeah, at least it's improving things that they brought him back alive. And I think Maduro will become an icon of resistance against America. Yeah, he's going to bite them harder than they're going to bite him in a way. He's becoming an historical figure of resistance already.
Yeah. You could be right about that. Now, let's get back to what we were saying here. There is very much something that you need to pay attention to here. So going back to this for a minute, The Atlantic are writing this. Go and do your homework on The Atlantic, please, and you will come up with some stuff that will very much shock you when it comes to that actual publication. This is literally about as CIA as you can get. Now, there is a lot of talk about threats, and of course, she has been saying all sorts of wonderful things. Don't for 1 minute believe it. She has had a very, very long conversation with Rubio and is willing to do basically whatever Rubio tells her to do. She knew all about this. Her name is Delcy Rodriguez. There are many people starting to ask the same questions now after we put forward the idea that this was going on. And our friends in MI6 are telling us, and our friend that are very close to the River House are saying she is definitely in on this. Okay. And of course, she did betray him. We're quite sure. So our friend is saying that she was sworn in as acting president after, obviously, Maduro on Saturday morning was whisked away to a federal detention center in Brooklyn and charged with narcotics trafficking and possession of machine guns. Now, President Donald Trump said on Saturday the US would now run Venezuela, but it wasn't exactly clear what he meant. He said, we are going to run the country until such time as we can see a proper judicious transition. Okay. We can't take a chance that someone else takes over Venezuela who doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. In other words, translated, that is, who won't do exactly what we tell them to do. Trump then said US Secretary of State Marco Rubio had a lengthy phone conversation with Rodriguez, and she was essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Now, there's been much speculation that the US bribed senior political and military figures to ensure there was no resistance to the US attack, which involved 150 US aircraft. No anti-aircraft systems were engaged apart from one man-pad, and Trump said that US suffered no casualties or loss of equipment, even though there was damaged equipment. Now, after she was sworn in later on Saturday, Rodriguez delivered a fiery speech denouncing the US attack while insisting that Maduro is still Venezuela's legitimate leader, even as he sits in a federal jail in Brooklyn. Now, she said the US had one attack objective here, regime change in Venezuela to allow for the capture. This is all theater. She said, we are ready to defend Venezuela. We are ready to defend our natural resources that must be for national development. The extremists who have promoted armed aggression against our country, history, and justice will make them pay. We will never again be slaves. Now, were they sincere or were they part of the deal or both? She might have meant what she said, but we'll still do what the US wants. Or were her defiant words just theatre? Could she even rule Venezuela without making such remarks? Is she using them and the Venezuelan people to implement the US agenda in her country? Is the Trump administration nervous that did she mean what she said and can't be counted on? She did indeed make a deal with the US, at least in the interim. Now, very simply, Washington appears open to a scenario that might have been politically unthinkable, working with Maduro regime, particularly the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, and her brother Jorge Rodriguez to stabilize and administer and reorient Venezuela. It is an experiment that should succeed and under certain conditions is going to get better and better for them. Not all Chavista figures are equally positioned to engage in such a bargain. Analysts, and many of them at the River House, are pointing repeatedly to the Rodriguez siblings, Delcy and Jorge, as long-time political operators and negotiators, uniquely capable as links in the chain. Now, the Rodriguez network retains influence over key elements of the security apparatus, intelligence services, and judicial system. That control is essential not only to enforce any agreement with Washington, but also to reassure regime insiders that cooperation with the US will not lead to prosecution, purge, or seizures of their property. In other words, the status quo will remain the same. Here's the problem is that the back-channel talks were already underway. And of course, it added that the purges in the Venezuelan government can soon be expected to make the deal work. In return for leaving them in power, the US is demanding ending oil shipments to Cuba, halting cocaine trafficking routes, curbing Iranian and Russian access, and opening Venezuela's energy sector companies to the US companies. All of this can be achieved without dismantling the regime's internal power structure. In fact, they would only likely enrich those who control the transition. Whether privatization of the oil industry erodes living conditions, even with the lifting of US sanctions, is key. The indignity of the people when they find out the nation has been subjugated to the US could also be crucial. Now, the most delicate challenge, we are being told by our source on the River House, is the Chavissimo, as they are calling it, cannot openly present itself as an American proxy without fracturing its base. Instead, they have to believe that the leadership would reframe cooperation as a pragmatic partnership undertaken to prevent chaos, avoid foreign occupation, and protect national sovereignty under new conditions. And in fact, yesterday, Rodriguez changed her tune. We invite the US government to collaborate with us on an agenda of cooperation orientated towards shared development within the framework of international law to strengthen lasting community coexistence. Totally different from a speech 24 hours ago. And our region deserves peace and dialogue, not war. It is a done deal. Rodriguez maybe will hold up her end of the bargain. But Trump on Sunday, of course, issued an explicit and thuggish threat saying if she doesn't do right, she's going to pay a very, very big price, bigger than Maduro. Now, our people in the River House have said that secret meetings have already taken place and that the UAE mediated between the US and Rodriguez, a 56-year-old oil industry lawyer and current Minister of Petroleum, which could help US companies back into the country. Now, we are being told this by our people on the River House. There was a meeting in Doha, some 7,500 miles away, and officials were busy discussing the future of Venezuela without Nicolas Maduro. A senior member of the UAE royal family was acting as a bridge between her and Donald Trump while the US president was building an armada to pressure the Venezuelan leader to surrender. Maduro had no part in the secret meetings. It was Delcy Rodriguez and her brother Jorge who were in the talks. Now, it is very, very simply, as far as we are concerned, 100% that this is now, and we were asking about this before, we are 100% certain of our facts, of everything that we have just told you about this. Lee Williams.
I was going to say, I trust this 100%. On Fox News, they said that the new city name is called Zion or something. Is that going to, what? I'm joking, obviously, but
yeah.
Next in there.
It's very, very straightforward here. This deal was already done in Doha. We are turning around and telling you that the UAE had a massive part to play in this, in doing this transition, and that not only her, but her brother were part of this as well. And this was already an agreed deal to be put in place once they grabbed Maduro. So the vice president and her brother organized this along with the US, and they are up to this in their neck. We're getting this from our MI6 source who knows that those meetings took place in Doha. Sean Murphy.
Well, on the face of it then, Warren, this would certainly, the only thing you can call this is actually a coup.
Yeah, exactly that. It's an overthrow. Very simply,
the Rodriguez and their cronies have basically overthrown Maduro, and the Americans have facilitated it.
They had 100%. The very simply, they wanted to do the overthrow. I would imagine when you look on offshore bank accounts, you will see that not only are, shall we say, people inside his inner circle rich, you will also find that they are rich as well, beyond their wildest dreams. You are talking well over the 50 million. 50 million was the price that was put on Maduro's head. But our sources are telling us that it's upwards of 250 million that has changed, that will have changed hands. And of course, that money will have been put in offshore accounts. We are talking about 250 million to buy a government is absolutely chicken feed. And if you look, here's the reserves, or the 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. That's 17 to anywhere between 17 and 19% of the world's total crude oil. So when we start talking about all this sort of stuff, so we are claiming right here, Mark Onza.
I think myself, Warren, I think there's more to it than just oil. I think what they've tried to do is prevent a currency revaluation with Bolivia, because
Yep.
as a lot of people on here listening all know, there's
Yep.
Venezuela, along with Vietnam, along with Iraq, are supposedly having some sort of currency revaluation at some point, and I think that's what's happened, is prevented that from happening.
Yeah, well, most of the silver's left the country. Nicholas.
Yeah, somebody was saying even if America sold the entire Venezuelan reserve of 303 billion barrels of oil, it would still only cover 1/3 of its debt for the bankers. And as we know in previous things, that American taxpayer hasn't really had a look at that money. It's all gone into the corporations. If we look at the oil that was stolen from Iraq or Syria, yeah, the American government has done those things, and it's racked up debts for America, but it's all the money has gone to the corporations and to the Zionist corporations at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call. So to the rest of the world, we are claiming here through our sources. Sorry, Nicholas again. Oh, got your hand up. I'll lower it down. Right, to reiterate once again, we are claiming, this channel is claiming that there were secret deals done in Doha between the Rodriguez clan and America to overthrow Nicolas Maduro, and that everything she is coming out and saying is complete and utter hogwash. And of course, everybody hopefully will get an idea about what is going on now. Once again, we are out front with this. So I don't think there's anybody out there saying it at the moment. We are saying this, that this has taken place, and this is something, of course, that we are going to keep talking about, and we're going to keep pushing forward on this. Now, it's very, very simple here. When you look on the left here, here is Maduro on the left. And here is a gentleman called Hernandez on the right.
Hernandez was sentenced to federal prison last year for taking millions of dollars in bribes from drug traffickers so that they could move what they described as mountains of cocaine through Honduras to the United States. His release came days after a presidential election in Honduras, in which Trump has backed the conservative National Party candidate over his liberal opponent. The latest vote count showed both candidates.
Now, it has been proven that gentleman trafficked over 400 tons of cocaine. He has been released by the Trump administration. Nilla should be okay now. He should be back online. Very, very simply, it is quite staggering that, of course, this is going on. And of course, while this is all going on, Lee Williams, very quickly.
Very quickly, I was just going to say, this ain't nothing to do with the fact, like Afghanistan with heroin, as one example. In it from America, is this going to be another source?
Well, it seems like Air America, doesn't it? All over again. Nicholas.
Well, what I thought was staggering was that Israeli private military companies were training both the Mexican and the Colombian cartels in the use of modern weaponry and in soldiery.
They certainly were. Quite incredible, isn't it? When you sort of look at it and you go, ooh, this is not a good thing. And it really isn't. It really isn't. And there are many people out there that are talking. Yeah, very quickly, Nicholas.
Well, there's also been a history of Zionists trading in drugs. It was the Sassoon family who had the entire opium trade in China. Yeah, the British were blamed for it, but it was actually the Sassoon family that ran the opium into China.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Just to let you know as well that there are lots of people now that are starting to have lots of chats about this. There are many people that are talking. Let's have a listen to Jeffrey Sachs on this.
It's a complete economic collapse, a catastrophe in Venezuela. There was a crisis for sure before Trump came to office, but the idea of the Trump administration from the start has been to overthrow Maduro. That's not a hypothesis. Trump was very explicit in discussions with presidents of Latin America where he asked them, why shouldn't the U.S. just invade? He said that already in 2017. So the idea of the Trump administration has been to overthrow Maduro from the start. Well, the Latin leaders said, no, it's not a good idea. We don't want military action. So the U.S. government has been trying to strangle the Venezuelan economy. It started with sanctions in 2017 that prevented essentially the country from accessing international capital markets and the oil company from restructuring its loans. That put Venezuela into a hyperinflation. That was the utter collapse. Oil earnings plummeted. The earnings that are used to buy food and medicine collapsed. That's when the social humanitarian crisis went spiraling out of control. And then in this year is with this idea, very naive, very stupid in my view, that there would be this self-proclaimed president, which was all choreographed with the United States very, very closely. Another round of even tighter sanctions, essentially confiscating the earnings and the assets of the Venezuelan government took place. Now Venezuela is in complete, utter catastrophe. A lot of it brought on by the United States deliberately, creating massive, massive suffering. We know there's hunger. We know there's incredible shortage of medical supplies. We can only imagine, because we won't know really until the dust settles and careful studies are done, how much excess mortality there is. But surely in a context like this is a catastrophe largely created by the U.S. because, as was said earlier, this is an all or nothing strategy. What the U.S., what Trump just doesn't understand, and what Bolton of course, never agrees to, is the idea of negotiations. This is an attempt at an overthrow. It's very crude, it's not working, and it's very cruel because it's punishing 30 million people. This is pure bullying. It is completely against international law. It creates havoc. It's hard enough to achieve economic progress, but when the U.S. is using its political power to break other countries, the results absolutely can be devastating. And we see it in Venezuela that it was the kick that pushed Venezuela into this catastrophic spiraling decline and hyperinflation. It's always blamed in our press on Maduro, but people don't even look and understand how the U.S. has the instruments of sanctions, blocking access to financial markets, pushing enterprises into default, blocking trade, confiscating the assets owned by the Venezuelan government precisely and with the design of creating this kind of crisis, because the idea is if the pain is enough in the thinking of people like Bolton, then there will be a military overthrow. So they're trying to create absolute disaster. Well, what's so stupid about these American policies, these neocon policies, is they do create disaster, but they don't achieve even the political goals of these nasty people like Bolton. It's not as if they're effective and nasty. They're completely ineffective and totally nasty at the same time. But Congress in our country, nobody looks. It's unbelievable that you have this basically one-man show of Trump doing damage, rampaging around the world. There's no oversight at all. And in the international institutions like the IMF, the Inter-American Development Bank, people are scared to even say the truth that this bully of the United States, especially with the kind of president we have right now, no one wants to speak the obvious facts of how much damage is being done, how many lives are being lost, how much suffering is being created, how many refugees are being created deliberately.
So that's Jeffrey Sachs's point of view on this. And of course, it is hard with people like this beside Donald Trump to actually disagree with him.
And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild their system. They're going to spend billions of dollars, and they're going to take the oil out of the ground, and we're taking back what they stole. Remember, they stole our property. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. They took our oil away from us. They took the infrastructure away. And all that infrastructure is rotted and decayed. And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild it. We're not going to spend very much money at all, if anything. But the oil companies are going to go, we're going to take our oil back.
Now, of course, that is simply not true. Of course, you've only got to go and have a look at everything that was spoken about this in the first place. And of course, Lindsey Graham has been having his say as well.
Could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They've preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26, in our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
Could you get your tongue any further up there? Would be my thoughts on that. There's somebody else has a thought on this. Have a little look at Nillis.
Well, I was just remembering of the CIA recommendations to the Contras in Nicaragua. They were saying kill priests and nuns, teachers, doctors, and any health workers, including midwives. They've got to be limited because we've got to undermine the government, and that's the way we do it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Eric Jones.
Yeah, for those that don't live in America, I've got to deal with the consequences of this stuff. And if they're not all forgetting, China holds a bunch of our debt. And angering someone that's when the debt is really coming due, like very, very soon, is not a bright thing to do at all, because they can call us on that debt and do whatever. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. And while we're on the subject, somebody has a different viewpoint of this, and I've got to say, the gentleman who put this together, bravo, sir, bravo. Have a listen.
In a stunning late-night operation, I had some friends of mine execute a raid on my neighbor Tom's house. He put up quite a fight, but we got through, and he's in custody. I haven't liked what he's been doing over there for a while now, so I've decided to run his house myself. He leaves his Christmas lights up too long. He never trims his avocado tree that hangs over my fence, and I believe he's running fentanyl out of there. I can't prove the last one, but it makes sense. I've seen him speak Spanish. I got rid of the wife as well. I didn't really have a problem with her, but we did do a 4th of July block party, and she brought empanadas, so better safe than sorry. I've got them at a Residence Inn a couple towns over. I've been using his home as my own little man cave. Pretty great. It turns out he has a fantastic wine cellar that I have tapped into extensively. Anyway, I'll be running his home until a time when I can have a safe, proper, and judicious turnover to some other guy. Which probably won't be happening soon. And just a heads up, I plan to take over some other neighbors' homes as well. Phil, across the street, has a pretty cool car I'd like to be in charge of. And Alex, who lives catty corner from me, has a wife who's a yoga instructor. Be taking that one soon. Again, doing it for the good of the neighborhood, so stay tuned.
There we are. Quite superb. Well done, sir. It pretty much sums up where we are, I'm afraid. And of course, we're going to get loads of that. Now, you remember the other day I did a US intervention for you. Somebody else has done one as well, just for Latin America. Have a look.
going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So,
and of course, for the Panama one, I was there. It is quite incredible when you look at that list. And of course, we only did it up to 1980. They've gone a bit further on that. And of course, when you look at everything that's coming out of it. Now, what we are going to play you is the Special Forces took part in this. But when we're talking about the war on drugs, it is quite incredible not to have a look at this and listen to this. This is from the Chris Hedges show, but I think it's an important thing to have a listen to.
They're given drugs by the military. It leads to addictions. When you write about Levine, you write by 2008 he was smoking crack on a daily basis and regularly ingested MDMA, smoked crystal, methamphetamine, snorted powder, heroin, and had even taken to inserting speedballs, a dangerous mixture of heroin and cocaine, into his rectum in a dissolvable capsule to get a quicker and more powerful high. The drugs and alcohol, I mean, the amount that these people ingest, of course, is kind of staggering, and we'll talk about the drug dealing later, but talk about how pervasive that was and the culpability of the military in kind of kickstarting these habits.
The military prescribes special operators dextroamphetamine as a matter of course, commonly known as Adderall. It is an amphetamine that allows you to stay awake for long periods of time and to tolerate sleeplessness that some of these missions require. It also has the effect, whether incidental or not, of increasing aggression and suppressing empathy. In Levine's case, he specifically cited the prescription he had been given to Adderall as precipitating his drug issues, which is a common sort of gateway or path towards the abuse of harder substances. He started crushing and snorting his Adderall, taking double the dose that was given to him, and then pretty soon he graduated to just using cocaine and smoking crack cocaine. And then his drug use and dependency deteriorated from there. More generally in the community, there's a ton of drinking. I mean, alcoholism is a major factor of life in the Special Forces, and it's not to be puritanical or to be judgmental of these people. I mean, a lot of people in our country struggle with substance abuse. It's actually one of the most salient aspects of American society. But I think that there's a sense in which it becomes necessary in order to cope with the pressures of a job like being an operator on Delta Force, the need to numb the pain and grief that comes from participating in this type of violence, and also, in readjusting or trying to readjust to civilian life, because a lot of them are almost literally addicted to adrenaline and need a stimulation at all times. I mean, a lot of these guys, their psychological makeup is such that they're constantly in need of stimulation, and they really don't like to be bored. And so those are traits, all of which are traits that are conducive to drug use. And I think those are some of the reasons why you've seen such widespread prevalence of drug use in the Green Berets and in the Airborne Corps, all at Fort Bragg, to a degree that you don't see elsewhere in the U.S. military.
I mean, the amount of heroin that was coming into the Fort Bragg area, there was a small airport near Fort Bragg that you write about, was kind of staggering. I mean, just massive amounts. And much of it was funneled through not just former members of Special Forces units, but active members of Special Forces units.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that airport, the Rayford Drop Zone, or the PK Air Park, it's sometimes called, that's a privately owned business. And if I told a lie about them being involved in that institution, that facility being involved in international drug trafficking, they could turn around and sue me for defamation really quickly. But the facts are clear. The facts are nailed down. There are criminal prosecutions that have either taken place or that have been fully adjudicated, show that airport, which is where Delta Force does its parachute training, has been a hub of international drug trafficking since the 1980s, and involving current or former Special Forces soldiers trafficking drugs into the United States by air and landing them and offloading them in this this airport that's within Fort Bragg's airspace and is contiguous with the base and has been a center of Delta Force training for decades. The Los Zetas were trained by the Special Forces. It's a Mexican Special Forces unit that was trained by the U.S. Green Berets, including at Fort Bragg, also at Fort Benning, and they also were trained by Israeli instructors. And they were meant to be in the mold of the Green Berets. They were meant to be the Mexican Green Berets. But this unit, quickly after being used to savagely suppress the Zapatista uprising in Chiapas in the mid-90s, they went rogue and looked around the the sort of underworld scene in Mexico and realized, hey, nobody, we're the baddest dudes around. I mean, we can run this game if we want, and that's exactly what they did. They defected from the Mexican state and became the most notorious cartel in Mexican history, Los Zetas, which really precipitated the terrible homicide crisis that continues in Mexico to this day, in which hundreds of thousands of people have died because of this new model of a paramilitary cartel.
There we are, Nillis.
Yeah, I've heard that one of the reasons that American have so many bases all over the world was to facilitate drugs trafficking. I don't know if that's
certainly happened. Certainly happened plenty in the Vietnam War, Nillis.
Yeah, and also it was the West that supplied ISIS with these drugs that made them very aggressive and made them they could fight for 48 hours onwards. It made them so aggressive that in some cases they would rip out their victims' hearts and eat them. Yeah, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah. Let's be absolutely honest here. The use of drugs in the military has been happening since the 1940s. And of course, it's only got worse and other things on top of that. Yeah. But good point, well made. Let's hear from, yes, very quickly, Neil.
I think even in the First World War, they used actually amphetamines, but I'm not
a type of amphetamine, but we're talking about, should we say, massive addictions here. They were only given in very small doses. Let's have a look. Yes?
And the Air Force used them as well.
They did, yep. Let's listen to what Scott Ritter has to say on this.
We went in and we got the bad guy. And it looked very easy because, of course, we're the strongest nation in the world under Donald Trump. And we don't want to dig into how this was so easy, how the CIA probably paid hundreds of millions of dollars directly or indirectly to the political elite, including the military and security forces of Venezuela, to step aside and let us do this staged event. Because this was a staged event. You don't go in with 2 troops of Delta Force into a hostile capital city and launch an assault of this nature unless everything was cleared in advance. That's the quickest way to lose 35 Delta troops. No, they went in. It was cleared hot to go in. It was a permissive environment. They got their made for TV moment, and then they left. And Donald Trump's going to build on that. But I think what you're going to see is that we have, over the course of the past several months, exploited both the sanctions and the possibility of lifting sanctions and the reality of the oil, of the money that's attached to the flow of oil, and we bought out the political and economic elite of Venezuela, including those who just a week ago were saying that they're standing with Maduro for life.
He's absolutely right in terms of what he is saying there when it comes to these people suddenly folding. What you have to remember, and it is very, very important to remember this, is that those people that we've just spoken about there are, or the Venezuelan people, have betrayed their own country for money. Okay, they've basically handed over their country and everybody in it to obviously the elite. And this, of course, I think is going to have massive ramifications going down the road because the moment, sooner or later, this stuff always leaks out. And of course, let's have a little look at this because this is homes in Venezuela after the strike. As you can see, quite a few of the people's own homes as well as the defence minister. They actually. And of course, our hearts go out to all the people who have lost their lives. You know, if you're in the military, you accept part of that, but of course, there are many, many people who are not in the military that are going to be in a problem there. This has come past, and of course, we have to say that this is it is amusing, scary, and very tragic at the same time.
We have had to listen to a lot. Threats, pressure, and condescending remarks, even from our closest allies for a generation, about wanting to take over another country and another people as if it was something you could buy and own. That has no place anywhere. We shoulder our responsibility in the world, and it is not us who will seek out conflict. But let there be no doubt, no matter what happens, we will stand firm on what is right and what is wrong.
Now that is the head of Denmark there, named Frederiksen. And of course, we're getting lots and lots of talk now about what's going to happen in Greenland. And of course, she has made various statements telling Trump to back off of Greenland. It's not going to happen, sweetie. I've got to tell you this. If they decide they want to go in, what is Denmark going to do about it? That would you have to sort of look at it where he'd do a deal with NATO and everybody else to go in. But if they want to go in, there is very little that Mette Frederiksen can do about this. And this is the problem you have when you allow this sort of thing to happen. And this is the problem with the coalitions, huge coalitions like NATO. Once one, should we say, group becomes more powerful than the other, and of course they're able to dictate terms, then of course you have a problem. If you let the wolf in the door, don't be surprised when he eats all your chickens. I'm sorry. There's a wonderful line from a film called Quick and the Dead with Gene Hackman, where he turns around and he says, if you let a fox in your hen house, he'll have chicken for dinner every time. Yeah, I think they are just about learning that, or they should have learned that by now. There you go. Something else that we need to have a chat about as well. Apparently, this idiot has thrown stones and made threats at the home of J.D. Vance. Quite what this idiot thought he was doing, I don't know. And of course, shouting all sorts of things and everything else. He's now in custody. I don't know too much more about that situation at the moment. We'll keep you informed. But apparently, you have to ask, where were the security services? You should have been able to stop that sort of thing happening. I would have thought anybody that's approaching. But it just goes to show you can get at anyone if you really have got the time and you really want to go forward with it. Another little story while we're waiting for Matt Le Tissier. 20 kilos of gold has been stolen in Bonn from the Germans, as if the Germans didn't have enough problems. There has been a raid. Now, they actually, would you believe, they actually paid for their parking. Quite incredible. Actually paid for their parking when they stole this gold from, obviously. And of course, the Germans are running around trying to find out exactly where they are, you know, where this gold is now. But the fact that they actually paid for their own parking shows how confident these people were that they were going to get away with this. I did find that hugely amusing. And I thought, given the state of Germany at the moment, you might find that amusing too. Friedrich Merz, what are you doing? This is a guy who can't even look over after his own gold reserves. Quite staggering. Something else that is staggering as well. Well, let's give you a heads up on this. Dan Bongino, God bless America and all those who defended her. I'll see you on the other side. Dan Bongino has now finished working for the American government and apparently is going back to his podcast. There we are. Let's hope that something, should we say, that it all turns out well for him. And of course, he doesn't get too much stick from people who turn around and go, "Oh my God, how bad is that?" Donald Trump has also turned around and said that he does not believe that the attack on Putin's residence actually took place. Now, the problem is here, and this is how you know that Donald Trump has not been kept informed or briefed properly about this, because Donald Trump has come out and said he doesn't believe the attack actually took place on Putin's residence, that it's all nonsense. And of course, we know different. We do know different because we've seen the actual video of this, of the people actually handing this over to people and saying the nonsense that's going on there. Sean Murphy.
Exactly a point I was going to make, Warren. We actually saw them hand over the microchip retrieved from one of the drones. So what has happened to that? Because Donald Trump certainly hasn't seen it, if that's what he's claiming. Or
No,
if he
exactly
has
that.
seen it, he's lying through his teeth. He doesn't need to lie about it. So what happened to that once the American military got their hands on it? Spirited away, hidden in the basement of the Pentagon, no doubt.
We will. We're just about to be joined by Matt Le Tissier. We'll just finish off this story, then we'll be right with you, Matt. Very, very simply, when people turn around and go, "Oh well, of course Donald Trump didn't know about this and everything else," he's been kept away from this story, obviously by the CIA, and of course we know full well that the evidence was handed over to the Americans. Very simply, there we go. There's the video of it, of the Russians actually handing over that drone attack microchip, that shows that the drone was actually on a pathway. So that shows you, when everybody's talking about the CIA being involved, it's obvious that they're not telling Trump, because there we go. There's the actual chip itself from inside the drone that was launched that proves that the track from the microchip was heading towards its residence. But have to say a massive good evening to Matt Le Tissier. Good evening, Matt. How are we?
Good evening, Warren. I'm good. Thank you very much, mate.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to have a little break from geopolitics for a little while here, because Matt is joining us, and he's joining us on the live show, of course. And of course, there may be people want to ask you questions, Matt. But we're going to be talking about, for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be talking about the sack race that is going on. Matt, the lunacy of this, I needed to talk to you about this as a professional footballer, because when you look at the league form and where both clubs were last year, Chelsea are about the same place. There's their current form and where they are. And Manchester United have improved dramatically. We've had both the managers now in the space of a week, Matt, leave the club either by mutual consent. I would say they were fired for having a go at the owners. What's your take on all of this? I mean, Maresca seems to, we're being told, has lost the dressing room, and Cole Palmer's not playing very well. Let's start with Chelsea first. Your thoughts on Chelsea, Maresca, and what's happened there with Todd Bowley?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there, Warren. I think the biggest factor in all of these things are probably not managing up properly and falling out with people who are perhaps have a stronger position than you do at the football club. And I think that looks like what's happened with Maresca and Amorim. In Maresca's case, obviously, you know, Chelsea are the world club champions. You can point to that on his CV. Pretty impressive. I think it was if it's based on results, it's a really harsh sacking. But I don't think it is based on the results, because given the fact that they had to play all through those summer months, I don't think anyone could have expected them to mount a credible challenge for the Premier League this season. I think that was asking a bit too much of the players, quite frankly. So yeah, I think for me, The Maresca one is probably similar to Amorim in that he'd fallen out with people above him at the club. You know, something wasn't sitting right. Maybe didn't feel he was supported well enough. And when those relationships break down, it's really hard to keep managing the football club.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever experience that time, in Southampton? I mean, obviously, we had Amorim come out and say, I'm there as a manager, you should respect that. I'm not there as a coach. But sometimes the manager's job isn't difficult. I mean, during your playing time, I mean, you had 10 guys who worked really hard. I would imagine the team talk was something along the lines of work hard, win the ball, defend properly, and give the ball to Matt.
At some periods at the club, yes, it was like that under certain managers, but not all of them. And yeah, I mean, it was we had some quite turbulent times, I'd say, at Southampton, where we had 2 years in a row where we had a manager who just had one season and then was gone. In Dave Merrington in 1995, 96, I think it was, and then followed the following season by Graham Souness, who came for a season, and he was gone at the end of that season as well. We kind of stabilised a little bit, bringing Dave Jones in for about 2.5 years, but then it was like a succession of managers again. Stuart Gray for a handful of games, Glenn Hoddle came in for a year, and then Gordon Strachan came in, and then it was a few years of stability. So we've had turbulent times, and it's not great for players when the manager keeps constantly changing, to be honest. And I think football clubs are far too quick for me these days to be sacking the managers, and expect some kind of consistency amongst the playing squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's get into this chairman, director of football, manager type thing for a minute then, Matt, because is this chairman with ego? I mean, at the end of the day, it's their money and they get to make the decisions. But is it a bit of an ego thing? I mean, your manager's going to have a moan every now and again, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, very few people are actually managers these days. They're head coaches, and they are just responsible for coaching the first team and picking that squad. They're not, a lot of the time, they're not even responsible for the players that come into the football club. There's a director of football now at a lot of football clubs who will have probably the final say on what sort of players come in, and he will just hand them over to the manager. Some clubs, they will have a policy where they'll obviously discuss that amongst them and try and come to some arrangement. But if at the end of the day, if the sporting director or the director of football, whatever you want to call him, if he's got his heart set on a player, the manager's not going to be overruling him. And I think that's where the big changes come now. There's been a real power shift in terms of just how much, say, the manager or the head coach has got in actually who's coming into the football club. So it's a really tricky one, because if you're a football club that keeps sacking managers after a short space of time, you've got to really, for me, I think the finger needs to be pointed at the bloke who keeps appointing these managers, because he's the one making the mistakes. He's the one who's costing it. Right. He's not getting it right. He's costing the football club millions of pounds in compensation for when they have to sack the managers, and he's not doing his job properly. And yet he's never the one that gets the sack.
Yeah, exactly that. Do you have some sympathy with the managers, given that we have a sort of a major problem in that if a manager doesn't fancy a player, rather like Mourinho with Shevchenko, in the Abramovich era, the manager doesn't fancy a player, he's not going to want to play him, is he? And is he going to feel under pressure to do so by the chairman?
I think he'll feel under massive pressure by the chairman. It depends on how strong a character and what credit you've got in the bank from what you've done previously. And that's what it all boils down to, really. How confident are you in your own ability to stand up for yourself to a billionaire owner who at the drop of a hat will just go, nah, sorry, mate, you're not playing the bloke that I want you to play, you're out. Which, I can understand as a manager going against that, because you've got your principles, you want to play what you think is your best team. And at the end of the day, it's a bit of a win-win situation, because if you're going to get the sack, that also comes with a very large check to say thanks very much for all your work. And Mourinho is, I don't know, he's probably earned close to 100 million quid in payoffs after getting sacked. So, is it such a bad thing? You've got to ask yourself. And is that right for football? Why are we rewarding failure so much?
Yeah, exactly that. And here's the thing that I wanted to ask, because is it better the devil you know? Because at the moment, Manchester United have improved beyond all measure from when Amorim took over. Chelsea are around the same, and as you say, that's going to be a hard ask after asking the players to play during the summer as well. I want to ask first, and let me ask that first of all. When you have to play during the summer, how much of a drain is that on players? I mean, because you hear the average fan, don't you, going, "Oh, in my day, I used to work 70 hours down the pitch," you know.
Yeah, I mean, your body certainly needs a rest at the end of a season. A lot of people will just look at what happens on a Saturday and they don't see what goes on during the rest of the week, how much effort you're putting into your training, and what you're putting your body through every day. And it does need a rest. I was quite fortunate that I didn't go to any World Cups or European Championships, so I didn't have that experience of having like 6 weeks of still being on it mentally and physically to try and perform at the top level. I did go to I had a couple of end of season trips, England youth teams to Brazil and places like that, and it does take it out of you. If you had a 9 or 10 month season, and all of a sudden you've now got to go and which happened to me when I was 20, I think I was, went out to Brazil and spent just over 2 weeks in Brazil playing football out there. It definitely, when you come back, you don't feel as fresh as what you would do if you've had that, real long break. Now, I know a lot of the time this is something I kind of disagree with as well. The football clubs now, I don't think they're doing themselves any favours, because even now during the off season, they'll give players a schedule to stick to make sure they keep up like their fitness levels. But I'm a firm believer that your body actually needs a proper rest. You're going to keep flogging it and flogging it. At some point, it will break down. And so I think the players actually need a proper break away from the training, and just to recharge the batteries every summer, and then come back into your pre-season and use that pre-season to get yourself match fit. But they seem to have gone away from that and kind of thinking that, oh no, let's just keep them at a level where they're fit the whole year round. And I don't think they're doing the players any favours by doing that.
Let me ask you a question on that then. When it comes to geniuses like Clough and people like Ferguson, they used to give the players a proper rest. They used to say, "Off you go," or whatever. And of course, they come back and they put a real shift in. Has sports science started to sort of mold people rather than have like you were considered to be a maverick player? George Best was considered to be a maverick player. Stan Bowles, people like that, who used to get a ball and they could do wonderful things with it. Are we going down the route of sort of physical automatons here?
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that. I watch Premier League games now, and there's not many players that will get me on the edge of their seat when they're in possession of a ball, because you kind of know when you're watching a game where they're going to go, what they're going to do. They've almost been programmed to go, right, if I'm in this position on the ball, I need to pass the ball here, or I need to pass the ball there. That's my two options, and that's it. And you can almost predict, when somebody gets the ball, where their next pass is going. But people like George Best and Rodney Marsh, those kind of players, you're always like, oh, what's he going to do now? Is he going to take somebody on? And if he takes that one person on, is he going to take the next person on as well? And you kind of, I think the Premier League is losing that a little bit. And I think we've got to be a little bit careful, because I think football's in danger of becoming a little bit boring.
Yeah. So when we talk about the automatons, then let's move that on a gear. So you've got the manager, and then you've got the director of football, and then you've got the chairman or the CEO, and then the chairman or the secretary or whatever. Is it a difficult thing for a manager to sort of accept what a director? Because I always thought a director of football should be somebody who sorts out the youth team and produces players to come through for the first team, rather than say to the chairman, right, we want that player and let's give him to that manager, when the manager probably looks at him and goes, he doesn't fit my system of the way we're playing.
Yeah. No, there's absolutely that goes on. You know, I I had a conversation with somebody at Southampton Football Club at the end of last season, and they said, you know, we've got 9 centre backs at the football club, and every one of them is right-footed. And I was like, what? How have you not? How has recruitment not been able to get in somebody who can play left-sided centre back with a left foot? And it's just bonkers that that's been allowed to happen. That there's so many centre backs, and yet they all kick with the same foot. It just it unbalances the team, you know, and that's again, you know, that's something that the director of football, if he's looking at squads and things, you know, he has to do it. I feel the director of football has to do that in conjunction with the manager, and the manager has to be the one for me. If he's picking the team on a Saturday and picking the formation, choosing the tactics, he has to be the one really that says which players come in and out and have the final say.
Yeah, just on that then, because we're looking at Jason Wilcox and maybe others as well. Does the director of football have too much say?
I would say there are. It seems that there are some clubs where the director of football has too much say over the manager. Yeah, I would think. You know, as I said then, you know, when it comes to putting a squad together and a manager who's got his ideas on how the team wants to play and the type of players that he needs, it just makes logical sense that yes, the director of football can, you know, go out and source a load of players and find what he thinks are good players and present it to the manager. But if the manager goes, it's not really going to fit my system, you know, that should be the point where the director of football goes, oh, no, fair enough, we'll leave that one then. But there are some that will go, no, he's a good player, we're going to buy him, in he comes, and the manager goes, well, where am I going to play him?
Yeah. Even though Amarin and Maresca maybe said something that, you know, has upset the chairman and everything else, and we saw that with we certainly saw it with Nottingham Forest when they got rid when the chairman got rid there. Is it better the devil you know? I mean, they were both making progress under this manager. They seem to be doing okay. Chelsea, as you say, took part in the summer, so possibly you know, a little bit of tiredness there. Manchester United seem to be improving. Were the I mean, these people who suddenly fire these coaches, it can all go horribly wrong in a very short space of time, can't it?
Yeah, well, we've seen what's happened to Forest since Nuno left. You know, he seems to have done a good thing there, but again, you know, obviously we had the incident where the owner came on the pitch, and Nuno wasn't too pleased about that. But I think also it became clear that the relationship between Nuno and Edu had broken down again. And again, that connection, the director of football and the manager, once that relationship breaks down, there's going to be a partner of the ways. There's only going to be one person who's going to pay with his job, unfortunately. And that's always the manager. And I feel sorry for some of them because sometimes it's not their fault.
Matt, give me an idea, because you've been through a lot of managers in your time at Southampton when you were battling relegation. When a new manager comes in and say for a player, what's it like for a player, especially for players who've just been bought by a manager who maybe 10 games into the season has suddenly got the bullet, and the new manager comes in and I mean, that must go on, mustn't it? Where the new manager comes in and doesn't fancy the guy who was bought previously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can remember Graham Souness actually buying Kevin Davis at the end of the season, and by the time we started pre-season training, Graham Souness had left, and Kevin Davis was like, "Oh, okay, he's just bought me, and he's buggered off." Fortunately, Kev was a good player, and he got his place in the team on merit. But it could quite easily have gone very wrong for him if the new manager had come in and gone, "No, you're not my kind of player, mate." He could have been bought for 7 or 8 million quid or whatever it was. Well, actually, it wasn't that much back in those days. We actually sold him for that. We paid him for about £1 million or something. But it was just, you know, it was luck of the draw that the manager who came in actually felt like he was a good player. So it's quite unnerving for the players, really, because you've had a season under a previous manager. You'll know what that manager's looking for in his players. So you'll know, what you've got to do to try and stay in his team. And then all of a sudden, the following season, a new man comes in, and it's like, oh right, okay. So what's this manager going to be expecting of me? Does he want me to play the same way that I played under the old manager? And there's all these questions that go through your mind. Is the new manager, does he think I'm a decent player first and foremost? Because most managers would have had experience of playing against the team that he's just joined, and he'll already hold opinions of the players that are there at the football club, and you just got to keep your fingers crossed that the manager actually thinks you're a decent player.
Is it tougher now? I mean, because it seems like, I've done at a lower level, I've done football management, and I know how difficult it is. Sometimes you end up being a social worker. The sort of wokerati and everything that is around now, and with the social media and everything else, man management, is that so much more difficult in this day and age?
I would say probably there's a bit more to deal with. Certainly in terms of the social media stuff. Obviously, during my career, there was none of that, thankfully, going on. Camera phones only came in just as I was retiring, so they didn't have that to worry about. But yeah, it's definitely I think more problematic in this day and age. I think the players are mentally a lot softer in this day and age than what perhaps my generation were. We were fairly hardened souls. We were brought up quite tough in the football world. You were taught. I was taught when I first started playing football that if the opposition kicked me, you don't let them show them that they've hurt you.
Yeah.
And yet the whole thing is flipped over now. And as soon as someone touches you, you're rolling around on the ground screaming. And it's like, what are you doing, you idiot? Get yourself up. So like the whole thing is flipped. And there's a real, I think there's a real fragile mentality amongst this generation of footballers at the moment. And I don't think it's a particularly good thing.
No, but you did have Francis Benali as your personal minder, didn't you? That was.
I did. He was one of the reasons. He was one of the reasons why I never left Southampton. I didn't want to play against him.
Yeah, exactly that. So let's get into this then, where it comes now to Manchester United, Maresca, and obviously Amorim will go on to other jobs. There's always another job somewhere. They're going to be. They're going to be hunting now for other managers. Tottenham might be the next people to get rid of their manager with Thomas Frank. Do clubs have an unrealistic expectation? Do owners have unrealistic expectations, Matt? Because you look at the Tottenham squad, you look at the Manchester United squad, and you go, they're doing well for sixth.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there is some very unrealistic expectations amongst ownership. I think you've got to understand that when you start the season, there's only really 4 competitions that you're playing for. And there's only a handful of clubs that can win those competitions. On the whole, even the League Cup is being won by the big boys. You look at the semi-finals of the League Cup this year. You got Chelsea and Arsenal. You got Newcastle, Man City. Now that's a competition where the big boys always play weakened teams in that competition, pretty much most of the time. Yeah. And yet here we are in the semi-finals. They're still there, even with their weakened teams that they've played in previous rounds. So yeah, there is I think unrealistic expectations. Not every club can win every season. And if you're one of those clubs who doesn't win a trophy but feels like you have to, and if you don't, you're going to sack the manager, then I think it's pretty unrealistic to expect that kind of success when the competition, there's not just one bully in the playground. There's a lot of clubs there with a lot of money, and they like to splash it around, and these things have got to be shared around over the course of time.
Yeah, absolutely. What I want to ask now is, they're going to be looking. There's no chance they could trade managers, is there? You don't think that one could go one way and one go the other way?
You know what? I would not ever be surprised by anything that happens in the managerial merry-go-round. Honestly, some of the things I've seen go on. I mean, who would have thought that Vincent Kompany would get relegated with Burnley, and just a few weeks later be appointed the Bayern Munich manager?
Yeah, just absolutely bizarre.
You
Isn't
know,
it?
there is nothing more bonkers than that in the whole world.
No, exactly
You
that.
know,
And of course, here's the other thing.
unless you throw in Russell Martin going to Rangers after what he did at our place in the Premier League.
Yeah, that was quite staggering, wasn't it? Look, well, I suppose we have to ask while we're on the subject. Do you see the Celtic manager surviving long, and how long before they call Martin O'Neill?
He's gone already.
Has he gone? I didn't realise he'd gone.
Yeah, he went a few hours ago.
Oh, my God, that's me researching for the show and didn't keep my ear to the ground. That'll be a phone
he went
call
a few hours ago. I'd expect Martin O'Neill's phone is ringing off the hook right now.
So let me ask about another phone ringing off the hook. The Crystal Palace manager, one of those are going to try and snap the Palace manager up, aren't they? Because the Palace didn't invest. He's known to be not happy about that once again. But obviously the chairman hasn't sacked him. This is going to be the phone's going to be ringing off the hook, isn't it? Him.
I think he's in a very, very strong position right now. His, his credibility is very, very high. Won the FA Cup with Palace. Having a decent season as well. And as you say, done that all on, in comparison to the other clubs in the Premier League on almost a shoestring budget, even though it's not. But I would imagine that his phone will be ringing off the hook. Any kind of big managerial positions at this moment in time that become available, I would say his name would be in the frame, because everybody knows that he's not going to renew his contract at the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly that. Is there a danger though with this? I'm just asking. Sometimes managers go to bigger clubs, it doesn't work out. Graham Potter is a perfect example.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Is he better off where he is, or is the lure of that so big that he's going to go anyway?
I think it's really hard if you're an ambitious manager. It's really hard to turn down a job at a much bigger football club than you're at the moment. So even though even the manager might think, do you know what? I'm not sure it's really for me, but can I really? Will that? This is the thing that goes through their head. Will that offer ever come back round again? And their agent will be in their ears going, you've got to strike while the iron's hot. This offer may never come around again. And it's obviously the agent that's obviously going to get a load more money if he does go. It is very difficult for a manager to stick where he's at if he doesn't feel like he's going to get backed and can take them further on.
Yeah, exactly that. SJ has asked a question. There are also more matches. Kickoff times are getting earlier at 12:30 on a Saturday, putting pressure on the player's body with little time to recover from the last match. Does that become a factor, Matt?
I would say it's only become a fact. It would only become a factor if you train too much in between the games. So as a former professional footballer, I liked nothing more than playing on a Saturday, playing on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then playing again the following Saturday. Because what it meant was we did very little training in between.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoyed that, because all my highlights were what I looked forward to was playing football matches. I didn't look forward to the fitness side of things. It was never my favourite part of the game. So if I'm playing Saturday, Wednesday, I'm happy as Larry. Do you know what? Yeah. And that's just me. That's me just loving playing football, and not really concerning myself with the tactical side of things and having a whole week for a manager to work on a plan for a game, because I wasn't really part of that plan, because I kind of went out and did my own thing anyway. So I don't think everybody thinks like me. I think a lot of them are like a bit snowflakey and a bit worried about where they might pull their hamstring if they play 3 games in a week. Boo-hoo, get over it. That's what you paid the big money for.
Yeah, absolutely. Louis Bastos has got a question for you. Louis? Are you there, Louis?
Hi. I've watched too many games. Great footballer, great time. Thank you. I want a question about Aston Villa. What do you see the prospect of Aston Villa going through to the Champions League?
Oh, blimey! I think they've got an incredible chance this season to be Champions League in top four. The form that they're in at the moment is just quite incredible. I know they got a bit of a doing at Arsenal, but even in the first half of that game, they give Arsenal a bit of a game and just fell apart a little bit second half. But they've bounced back with a win. And a fairly comfortable win against Forest. So I don't see there's any reason why Villa can't stay in the top four. I really don't. I think they've got a very good team. I think the strength in depth is the one thing that might go against them, and so they've got to keep their fingers crossed so they can keep their players fit.
And you think Man City will and Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal will maintain their form right through the season?
No, I think there'll be wobbles. I think Arsenal will drop points. I think Man City will still drop points. And yeah, obviously Villa will drop points as well. But if they can keep the levels of consistency going, I don't see any reason why they won't be Champions League again. They've got a very good team, they're a very good manager. Unfortunately for them, they're suffering a little bit because of the PSR rules. So they weren't able to spend as much money as they've got. Because of that, and that's a little bit unfair. That's a whole new topic of discussion for another time with the rules surrounding the PSR stuff.
There you go,
Thank
Louis.
you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a very quick one, Matt, before we go to Lee Williams. How good is this Rodgers kid?
I think Morgan's done incredibly well this season, and to be in a position where the England manager feels like he's the number one spot for the number 10 shirt, when you see what the players that he's up against in that position, is quite remarkable. Because at the start of the season, or maybe a year ago, you'd have probably said he was about fourth in the pecking order.
Yeah.
And yet his game has come on a whole heap, and he looks like a real top class player. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him.
Fantastic. Lee Williams, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Matt, I'd say, like I say, everybody highly respects you. You've always been trusted, and you're an absolute genuine bloke. One thing I was going to say is I know there's some poor premierships, like as example Manchester City. I think the guy's third richest in the world. But with this FIFA, are they to be trusted? Anything to do with FIFA?
No,
exactly.
Absolutely not. Or UEFA, by the way. It's not just FIFA. I wouldn't trust UEFA either.
They don't seem to have the players' best interests at heart. And the World Cup, Matt, I've got to ask you this question. It is sort of semi-political before we let you go. The World Cup, should Israel be available in it? Should Russia be allowed to play in it? And given that America have just invaded or just had a mass effort in Venezuela, should the USA be allowed to play? Should people boycott it because of what they've done in Venezuela?
Yeah, all very good questions, and there is some validity behind those claims, because you can't make one rule for one person and then change it because it's just somebody else that you think you like. You can't just go changing your mind. If somebody breaks the rules, they break the rules. If they're all breaking the same rules but only one country's getting punished, then something's not quite right.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Matt, thank you so much for your time. It's been far too long since we've had you here. I hope you'll come again and see us again soon.
Absolutely, mate. Good to speak to you.
You too. Take great care, Matt. And thanks again,
mate.
once again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
There we go. That was Matt Le Tissier there. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, always bang on, should we say, with everything that he does for us. And it's wonderful to have him on the show. Good friend of the show. And of course, we will now get on with the rest of the show. We've got other stuff to talk about, but we did want to cover the Premiership and everything to do with that. So I hope you enjoyed that little piece there. Nillis.
Yeah, the last time Matt came on, I think, was when who's that guy who got fined from the Reform Party?
You mean Rupert Lowe?
Yeah, Rupert Lowe. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because he used to be. That's right.
Yeah.
I recently heard an interview from him on Tucker Carlson, and he said one of his two favourite historical figures was one Margaret Thatcher and two Oliver Cromwell, and that sort of put me down in it. I was quite rooting for him.
Not the great, but it's always nice. Matt's always very good and pops on for us when we do want to ask him. And of course, it's not very often we cover football here, but we did tonight because at the end of the day, we're a news show, and that's what we're supposed to do, as well as just political. Sean Murphy.
Well, I like these interviews with Matt because he's a down-to-earth guy. He's no different to us. He's not pretentious. He knows his stuff. Like what he doesn't know, you could write on the top of a pinhead, and you always get a straightforward and honest opinion from him.
Yes, you do, and it's always wonderful when we have that. And I think it would be nice to have more and more of that. Louis Bastos.
Oh, just a question. I'm wondering because he was never chosen to play for England's national team.
He was, yeah. I think he played once for England.
Because he was such a great player, man. I was wondering why is this guy not playing for the English team regularly? Because I think, like you say, maybe he played one game, but I've watched most of England's games. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. He should have played a lot more for England, in my opinion. As you all know, I played against him once. He came on. I was playing semi-pro football. I was playing for a team down in the West Country. He came on. I had the job of picking him up. He came on for a 15-minute warm-up, basically. Sent me completely the wrong way and bang one in the top corner from 25 yards, and then walked off the pitch about 10 minutes later. He was that good. And that was just having a bit of fun in a pre-season kickabout. So it just goes to show you just how good Matt Le Tissier actually was. Let's get into some of this stuff now, because there is quite a bit to get into with this. This is in Iran. So the person arrested is of Israeli descent. He was part of the protesters. Let's have a little look at it. Sean Murphy.
Well, obviously, Warren, he was a vampire hunter. That's his excuse. You note the silver bullets.
Yeah, exactly that. You'll never guess, of course. We'll tell you exactly where those weapons came from. Here's a peaceful protester. You have to wonder how he managed to get hold of a flamethrower. Of course, he was shot and he was shot, then arrested and died in custody. We won't say too much more about that because we don't know whether that was from his wounds or whether, of course, he got his head beaten in. The thing is, protesters turning up with those sort of things is quite incredible. Same as protesters turning up with these. Now, the gentleman that we saw being with the hideout there, of course, we said that this was going to happen. We said that the place where they were going to come from, and it's been proven. We have the Zangezur corridor, which is right here, into Iran. This is where the protesters have been coming through. Other NGOs have been flying in. The gentleman who was grabbed was an Israeli. And of course, there was much documentation to show that he had come through the Zangezur corridor, as many of them have, including there are oil companies there and many American shall we say, paramilitary groups. And these are not organic protests at all. And of course, this is what they are trying to do, and they want to overthrow Iran next. Iran is definitely on the list to be overthrown. And just in case you haven't seen it, by the way, here's the movement of the tankers. And just to let you know that and this is definitely being lined up, the ex-Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, has, of course, released this video on TikTok where he decided he was going to turn one of these over, and literally saying it is Iran. Flip the hourglass with a caption, "The time has come," as though he is the person who decides whether or not America are going to go to war. Possibly is. The other thing, there is something I wanted to show in this because I think this is very, very important. I want to show you a video from an interview from 1969. And this is an interview with a young American soldier in Vietnam. Have a listen to what he's got to say. This is bang on. In 1969, I might add.
69, a young American soldier in Vietnam was asked to send one message 50 years into the future, and he didn't hesitate to speak the truth.
If you could send one message to Americans 50 years in the future, what would it be?
Don't send your sons to finish what politicians start.
Don't send your sons to finish what politicians start. If you are out there and you are watching this show, by some sort of miracle, because we get shadow banned for telling the truth here, that is possibly the greatest piece of advice you could possibly have from 60 years ago, from somebody's son who went through all of that. Now, just to give you a heads up as well, when we're talking about Iran, we've shown you, or you should have seen by now, that the many tankers and everything else are finding their way to Great Britain and then flying on to the Middle East. This is definitely a goer. We think it will be within the next month or so, but of course it may be a little longer before they decide to have a full go at it. But it's certainly building up, and Israel are pushing very, very hard for them to launch again. And of course, on top of that, you know it's coming when you see this sort of headlines. Ayatollah Khamenei plans to do a bunk. This is not true, but this is the sort of thing they will try and put up to try and destabilize the situation, showing that he's got an exit route, he's going to leave, he's going to run away, blah, blah, blah. He's not going anywhere. But of course, once they start putting this stuff out, it's all part of the disinformation campaign to try and get, shall we say, people on side. Got to tell you, it's not going to work in Iran. Lee Williams.
I was going to say, does Russia and China and the rest of them know that you know, the West are planning this, obviously?
Yes, of course they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're not going to be leaving anywhere. They've had plenty of more deliveries from the Russians. And of course, there are many, shall we say, stupid things going on, more deliveries and everything else that are going to get sorted out, should we say, to do with. Now, most of you won't have seen this, by the way, but when we're talking about Israel being behind stuff and everything else, and we always talk about the links with Ukraine. Vic George, and I sometimes mention Vic a lot because Vic sometimes goes on a rant about the Khazarian mafia and everything else, but he's right to do so. Because here you go, this is an Israeli rabbi with Kirill Budanov, who is the head of the SBU. Anybody thinks that neo-Nazis and Zionists don't work together, think again. They absolutely do. They are one and the same. They are all cut from the same cloth. Of course, my grateful thanks sometimes when Vic does have his rants, we put up with it because most of the time he's completely right. Let's have a little look at this because there is something that we need to talk about, and it's neo-Nazism. You may remember a certain journalist getting in trouble for exposing that this guy got a standing ovation in the Canadian Parliament. And of course, it turned out that he was a raging Nazi and that indeed his son had given contributions to, should we say, those horrible people in Mark Rota, who was the head at the time, was the head of the Canadian Parliament, and he ended up resigning. Well, have a look who Zelensky has just appointed as his economic advisor and handshaker, economic advisor, my backside. One of the people we exposed as being a neo-Nazi sympathizer, Krista Freeland, who was the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. She is now Zelensky, it's all in the pot together. She is now Zelensky's financial advisor. Boy, does he ever need that, or economic advisor. And of course, the fact that she has taken over that role tells you everything you should need to know. I mean, when we talk about neo-Nazis, there's no question whatsoever that he is, that she is absolutely terrible. Now, the choice is notable given Freeland's family background. Her grandfather was a guy called Mikhailo Choimak, who spent World War II working for German military intelligence as the editor of a Ukrainian newspaper that openly praised Hitler and promoted virulent anti-Semitism. After the war, Choimak and his family were accepted into Canada alongside thousands of other Ukrainian Nazi collaborators and former SS members. He later settled in Alberta, where he remained active in all their causes. Sean Murphy.
Well, I should imagine she'll be getting hefty remuneration from Zelensky for showing him how to hide his ill-gotten gains, which will be about the long and short of it. It's not an economic advisor for the country. It will be an economic advisor for Zelensky, how to hide his money or how to spend such hidden funds.
Yes, and when we talk about this, you're absolutely right, Paul. But here's the thing: when we talk about these things, because that Budanov is now going to become in the presidential office, and of course that is to keep an eye on, very simply to keep an eye on Zelensky, because Zelensky's going nowhere until they get rid of him in the summer, and this is becoming more and more prevalent, and I'm going to tell you why this is becoming more and more prevalent, because there are stories starting to emerge in the press. This is Sersky, the longtime confidant and number two and top man as far as Zelensky is concerned, having his authority eroded. And there is a ridiculous story coming out about Sersky that, of course, they are saying that the Ukrainian army chief paid for his elderly father's treatment at one of the Russian clinics. In December, he transferred another 1,000 rubles for the treatment. In total, Sersky has already transferred 6,000 rubles to the Russian healthcare system for his father's treatment. Now, if you believe that Sersky would be stupid enough to do that and not do it elsewhere, this is quite clearly somebody putting the money in Sersky's account and transferring it to the Russian healthcare system by devious means to try and fit Sersky up here. This is Sersky being lined up to be replaced. We all know that Zaluzhny, Budanov, is, if you like, the USA, the CIA, and the EU's dream ticket. They are fast approaching outliving their usefulness. So just to let you know, when we talk about the neo-Nazis on this platform, when you look at Budanov and his close links to Israel, and also his very close links to the Azov battalion, and of course the Zaluzhny, who is a committed neo-Nazi, we are heading more down the path of neo-Nazism than we are away from it. Just in case anybody was wondering, in case anybody had any ideas at all that things were going to get better in this war, think again, please. It is quite incredible that anybody would think that we're going to be okay, because we're not. This is being lined up for more of the same, not less. Just wanted to make that quite plain. If you are somebody out there that thinks, as Debreen would say, things can only get better. No, they can't. They can get far worse. Let's have a listen to what Orbán has to say.
Többször mondtam már ezt önöknek, részt veszek az Európai Tanács ülésein. Az európai vezetők ülnek ott. Ott egy óriási változás történt. Ezek a tanácsülések átalakultak. Ezek haditanácsok. Haditanácsok. Háborúról döntenek. Most őket idézem, hogyan győzzünk, hogyan nyerjük meg a háborút, sorolhatnám tovább. Tehát megváltozott minden, arra kell számolnunk, hogy most már nem egyedül, de még mindig csak néhányan vagyunk olyan országok, amelyek a hadigazdaság, a hadikölcsön, a háborús, a hadviselés logikája helyett egy teljesen más stratégiát javaslunk az Európai Uniónak, illetve a saját magunk számára. Ez a béke, stabilitás, békekötés, békegazdaság. Legutóbb már 3-an voltunk, és szerintem leszünk még többen is. Nekem az a helyzetelemzésem, hogy egész Európában gyorsan növekednek a háborúpárti elittel szembeni társadalmi mozgalmak. Magyarországon ilyen azért nem növekszik, itt is van háborús mozgalom, csak nem a kormánnyal szemben, mert itt nem háborús elit van, hanem békepárti kormányzat. De egész Európában, ez a 26-os évnek egy fontos eleme lesz, meglepő erővel törnek majd föl a háborúpárti elittel szembeni társadalmi mozgalmak Nyugat-Európában. Önök is látták a számokat, a ukránok tegnap előtt jelentették be, hogy a katonai és biztonsági kiadások nélkül a következő 10 évre kérnek 800 milliárd eurót. Miközben európai gazdaság lejtmenetben van. Aki ezt kifizeti, tönkreteszi a saját népét. És az emberek nem szokták hagyni, hogy tönkretegyék őket. Tehát ennek előbb-utóbb valamilyen társadalmi mozgalomban meg kell jelennie Nyugat-Európában. Ennek látom a jeleit.
There we are, Viktor Orbán speaking sense once again. Now that's almost to the end of the show. It's a little bit early tonight for a good reason. We are going to be showing you a bonus program after the end of the recording of this show. For subscribers, we're going to be playing you the interview between Larry Johnson and Scott Ritter. So just if you are aware, if you've enjoyed the show tonight, do come across to warrenthornton.com. Come and sign up, because obviously we carry on shows and we do lots of stuff outside of what you see on the normal social media, because of course we are probably the most shadow banned news show out there. The reason I would say come across and join, because there are many other articles and everything else, and of course we have bonuses and everything else, and also it's your platform for free speech. There are people on here who don't agree with me, but we can quite happily have a normal average discussion. Just to let you know that on the subscriber show, which is for subscribers only, on Thursday morning we'll be having Jamie Ike popping in to say hello. We will also have somebody who's running against Gavin Newsom for the Democrat Party. Literally, he's trying to win the Democrat nomination. And he is, of course, going to take on Gavin Newsom. He's coming to see us for an exclusive interview and talk to us about how he is going to tackle the problems that California are facing. And, of course, you'll be able to ask him all the questions you like. If you're a subscriber of this show and we get a politician on here, you get to talk about what you want to. And, of course, that's exactly what we always do. There is another little thing for you as well. We've got James Tweedy tomorrow, and we've got Tony Gosling at some stage this week as well, who will be talking about the Bilderbergs and also what's going on, shall we say, and the links between Venezuela and what's happening in Israel. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, you will carry on joining us. But as I say, for the time being, Thank you very much for watching, and look after yourselves. And for now, or just for this portion of it, we're going to stop the recording. Thank you very much indeed. Take care.